Yo, good afternoon, good evening, how you doing? Welcome my patrons to our next lesson as far as the law of mentalism is concerned, which is the divine paradox. I will go ahead and forewarn you, this will be one of the more difficult things for you to grasp, for most people to grasp, maybe not you independently, but for most people to grasp, this will be the most difficult one. This will also be the one that if you do grasp it, then your ability to understand the law of mentalism will be increased dramatically. So without further ado, we're going to talk about the law of divine paradox. Well, it's not the law of divine paradox, it's just the divine paradox. Well, actually, it is the law of divine paradox within the law of mentalism. So first, and of course, we're coming out of the book, The Kabbalion. The book of the Kabbalion are the Hermetic principles as written by Thoth, Hermes, Heru, on the emerald tablets. But we find this wealth of information in many different forms and fashions throughout history of ancient wisdom, current wisdom. This is the philosophy that all other philosophies are based on. But then, of course, man has churned them into his own creativity, his own creations, in order to control or to deceive. Only those of the master mindset have utilized this information for the benefit of themselves and man. So the divine paradox, because we've already talked about how the all is mental and everything in the universe is mind. The universe is created as a thought of the living mind sitting in his meditation of the moment of realization that we are all in existence based on the thought of the living mind, and that we are finite mind that merely exists within that thought creation, and that in the same way that the Creator thinks and creates us and creates all the universe, we think to create our own universe, but being finite minds, we cannot reach the level nor understand the fullness of the living mind. But the Kabbalion gives us clues and hints, gives us a way to elevate to the next level of understanding. And that if we can get this divine paradox deep within us, especially at the end of this is going to become vital. A vital understanding is there. But if we can get this, then we will be able to become masters, to be able to raise our vibration and raise our mental condition to that moves us closer to the Father Mind. And I'm only using Father Mind as we have discussed in the previous lesson. We have the law of gender always at work with the Father Mind and the Mother Nature. So it is not to say that we are looking at two beings, two entities, two living minds. They are one and the same, just different aspects of it. So the divine paradox, what the Kabbalion says as far as its axiom that is from the emerald tablets, the half-wise recognize and the comparative unreality of the universe. Imagine that they made defy its laws. Such are vain and presumptuous fools, and they are broken against the rocks and torn asunder by the elements of reason of their folly. The truly wise, knowing the nature of the universe, uses the law against law, the higher against the lower, and by the art of alchemy transmute that which is undesirable into that which is worthy, and thus triumph. Mastery consists not in abnormal dreams, visions, and fantastic imaginings or living, but in using the higher forces against the lower forces, escaping the pains of the lower planes by vibrating on the higher. Transmutation, not presumptuous denial, is the weapon of the master. That is the Kabbalion statement of the divine paradox. We're going to come back to that statement in its entirety a little bit later, because understanding that concept there in a way, I'm going to explain to you in a way that is very familiar to you already. But as we get to it, I want to build you the foundation first so that you can understand it in the Hermetic alchemical way, not in the modern philosophy way, not in the modern teachings, not by those who claim the metaphysical or the theologians, but in those that claim this all living mind and understand the hermetics of it all, right? So this is the paradox of the universe resulting from the principle of polarity, which manifests itself on all beings to create. Polarity is the bar to which something exists, right? Nothing is all good nor all bad. It is but on a scale. It could be the scale of acts, it could be the scale of emotion, but it's all on a scale. Nothing is all one side nor the other side, but there are many degrees throughout the middle, and of course the law of rhythm swings. So understanding this divine paradox, we must understand that the law of polarity is at work here. While to the infinite all, the universe is law, its powers, its life, its phenomena are all things witnessed in the state of meditation or dream. Yet all that is finite, the universe must be treated as real, and life and action and thought must be based thereupon accordingly, although with an ever understanding of the higher truth, each according to his own plans and laws. As this portion of the book is going to go deeply into the understanding that the mental universe is created through the meditation, the imaginings of the all. But we as finite beings live in this reality, meaning that although we recognize that this is all an illusion, that this is all as people like to say, the matrix, but we dwell within that matrix, right? There's an old saying, and this saying here, you can find it in the Taoist teachings as well. This is why I tell you that all teachings come back to the Hermetic laws. It says, keep your mind ever on the star, but let your eyes watch over your footsteps, lest you fall into the mire by reason of your upward gaze. Remember the divine paradox that while the universe is not, still it is. Bruce Lee was a Taoist. In one of his movies, I forget the name of it, I know somebody's going to write it in the comments. But in one of his movies where he had to take down the drug lord on the little island, they had a little tournament of champions. I don't know if that was, it wasn't Enter the Dragon, but whichever one it was. It wasn't the Big Boss, I know that either. It might have been Enter the Dragon, but anyway. He's teaching a student at the very beginning, right? And he tells the student, he says, watch, he's pointing up, and he says something to the effect of, if all you're doing is, if you're pointing a finger at the moon, but your focus is on the finger, then you miss all the glories of heaven, is what he was telling them. This is a Taoist teaching. Here it is already in the Hermetics, where it's saying that you keep your mind ever on a star, see the universe, but be mindful of every step. Otherwise, you will find yourself falling. Be mindful of your dreams, but see every step. Be mindful of your goals, but see every step. Be mindful of what you want to attain in the world, but be mindful also and see everything that it takes to get there. All the pains, all the joys, all the work that it takes. The world should be a better place. People should treat each other fairly, but recognize that we don't. Be mindful that race doesn't exist, but see that in the minds of finite man, we treat each other based on race. We have ideas of each other based on race. So be mindful of the reality of it. So even though the universe is not, race is not, still it is. Although gender is not, still it is. So keep your mind ever on both ends of the pole. That's why it says the teachers are constantly warning the student against the error of omitting the other side of any question, meaning that to every question and to every answer, there is more than one side. There are different levels along the scale of polarity. And when we see an answer or a question, we have to understand where it falls on the scale and realize that there are opposite ends of that thought, of that answer, of that question. So we can't forget that, because the divine paradox is of absolute and relative. Now, from the absolute view, of course, the universe is in the nature of an illusion, a dream, a phantasmagoria, as compared to the all in itself. the universe, the all, the living mind. This is where some people say at some point even the scientists have to have faith, because at some point the scientist, the theologian, has to say there is a point of absolute that I do not know, that I can't fathom. We know that when I was coming up in school, the atom was the smallest particle. And then we talked about how the protons, electrons, and neutrons were the even smaller particles. But today, we recognize that there is even space in between the atoms, the protons, and neutrons. And in that dark matter, there are elemental things that are even smaller, but we don't know. We don't fully understand dark matter. So even the scientist has to have what people call faith in that something is there. So in the absolute, we know that it is all an illusion because we don't know. The mind of the all, the living mind of the all, no one can prove heaven, no one can prove hell, no one can prove a physical existence of a living creative mind. But what we do have is the relative. We have the relative because in the absolute, anything that has a beginning and an end must be, in a sense, unreal, untrue, and the universe comes under that rule. It comes under the rule of having a beginning and an end, and so it is untrue, so it is not real. It is the unsubstantial, non-enduring a thing of time and space and change. The mind of the all, matter, is that. It is a thing that is in constant change. Now the all, the living mind, is not in constant change. It is absolute, but we can't fathom that. It is but an illusion for us. Absolute truth has been defined as things as the mind of God knows them, or the mind of the all, the living mind would know them, while relative truth are things at the highest reason of man to understand them. This is why truth is on a scale. Truth is on a scale based on a finite mind of man being able to reason that thing, right? So we can talk about the space between atoms, the space between protons, neutrons, and electrons, but we can only know the truth of it to the point of your ability to reason it. This is why people can see an event. There was a movie where all these people witnessed an assassination, but to each one there was a different story, different variations to it, different levels of reasoning of it, because they saw things differently. When we read history, our reasoning of the history is different based on who is viewing it and their ability to reason it at a finite level. But there is an absolute truth, and that absolute truth is that the mind of the all, the living mind of the all, is the only that can know the absolute truth, to where our truth is relative. Hence, people cry out, I will speak my truth, because it is the truth to their reasoning. Nevertheless, to the finite mind, forming the part of the universe and viewing it through mortal faculties, the universe is very real indeed and must be considered. Do I know that this is mere atoms, energy, moving? I know this to be true, but my senses allow me to feel it. I can smell it. They're making popcorn, so it smells like caramel. But I know that it is here, but I know that it's not here, that this is energy, that my hand is vibrating at a rate that I can't see, that molecules are bonding at something that I cannot see. So I know that this hand is not real, but yet I live in a universe on a plane of matter where I recognize it is real. If I smash my hand, I will feel it, right? If I smash my hand, I will feel it. And science understands this. Science is teaching this, but the Hermetics already knew. Science only in the last 100 years began to realize the energy, that we are energy, that we are vibration, but only recently. But the Hermetics, they knew this a long time ago. But this is where they are coming together. But if we did not have the reasoning of our mind, if we can outstrip our reasoning of mind and truly see the atomic structure that we call hand, then will not our hand pass through the wall, because we will see the true atomic nature of it. Only the higher levels of mind can do that. Most of us will live in our finite mind because we believe what we see, what we smell, what we taste, what we touch. But it is not a negative thing. It is something that we must understand and be able to work with and use. It says another part, "Oh friends, to the mortals, this universe of mentality is very real indeed. It is the only one we could ever know." We can't know the universe beyond or the universe below. We only know the current universe of the matter plane that we're in. It is true that the higher will rise in the scale, and nearer to the mind of the Father we reach, the more apparent becomes the illusionary nature of the finite things. Our stories of beings on earth being able to transmute water into wine, and not just Jesus' character, because the Horus character transmute water into wine as well. To be able to walk on water, to be able to heal people, raise people from the dead. Other entities, deities raise people from the dead, so do not think I'm only talking about one. But to be able to do any of these things is to understand that your mind has been risen higher, closer to the living mind, so that the illusionary properties of this world begin to show themselves. Many times it could drive a person crazy when you truly understand the illusion of this world, the illusion of power, the illusion of business. Let me put it like this. America is an illusion. Does America really exist? If you take away the mind of the people that believe that America exists, then it ceases to exist. America only exists because people believe in a piece of paper. People believe in man-made borders. People believe in the unity of a nation is the only reason America or any nation exists. People's belief in race is the only reason race exists. People's belief in enemies is the only reason enemies exist. If you take away all religions, then imagine this. Let me start that over. Imagine this. If you took away all religion, then the Muslim would have no quarrel with the Christian. The Christian would have no quarrel with the Jew. If you took away all religion, the Jew would have no quarrel with the Muslim. But it's because of the belief in their religion. It is because of the belief of the fight, of the continuous fight between two brothers. The continuous fight between two brothers, which are written in a book by men who said that the two sons of Abraham will always fight each other. And that Allah, Elohim, Yahweh, went to both Hagar and Abraham and said that I will make nations of your son. It is the only reason that we fight. But we fight out of the group mind of a belief. Chew on that for a second. Chew on that for a second. But the higher we rise in consciousness, the more we realize the fallacy of that. We realize the false nature of it. But rather let us recognize the real nature of the universe, seek to understand its mental laws and endeavor to use them to the best effect in our upward progression through life as we travel from plane to plane of being. We are to elevate our mind. Do away with the racist mind. Do away with the nationalist mind. Do away with the cultural-based mind. Do away with the religious mind, the theological mind, and rise to the higher consciousness of the creative mind, the living mind. And the illusion will show itself, and then by it showing itself, we will then allow ourselves to use law against law to master the universal laws. So don't feel insecure or afraid, because when you raise in vibration, raise your mental thought, when you transmute your brain, when you commit alchemy to your thoughts, and you raise your thoughts from lead to gold, you come to the realization that there is no power outside of the all. There is no power that can affect us beyond that. That matter does not exist. That it is not something that exists to us, but it only exists on the material plane, the matter plane, because we exist on the matter plane. But we can then, as we grow higher in mastery of this, become the master over matter. This is where our stories of transmuting foods into certain other foods, or body into certain body, or moving mountains. The idea of moving mountains is to be able to control the matter, because you have risen your mental vibration above that which is the matter plane. As long as you exist on it, you cannot move the mountain. People say that they believe in that. They say when one or two of us are gathered together in somebody else's name, that they will move mountains. I challenge you to move the mountain. I challenge you to move the mountain. I haven't seen a mountain move yet. I haven't seen it. I haven't. But you have to recognize that the two coming together, it's the male and female energies that are within you. Your personal twin flame. Your personal opening of your pineal gland. It is you, the God and Goddess inside, that comes together. And as of yet, until you come together, mastery is not yours. But as you learn it and become it, it will start to develop. You'll start to show itself. But then we'll be able to overcome the lower laws with applying the higher ones. To give you an idea of that, as we go through this, you will recognize that the law of cause and effect and the law of vibration are higher laws. Well, the law of cause and effect is a higher law to the law of vibration, and the law of vibration is a higher law to the law of polarity. And it's a high vibration, and it's also, those two are also higher than the law of rhythm, which allows you to utilize the sub-law of polarization to polarize yourself on one side of the pole to stop the swing by understanding the law of cause and effect and understanding the law of vibration. But yet the law of correspondence and the law of mentalism are above those laws. So we must have those laws we must know those laws, the law of mentalism and correspondence, in order to affect the law of cause and effect and the law of vibration, so that we can then affect the law of rhythm and the law of polarity. But all of that must be known through the law of gender, so higher laws over the lower laws. And then in that way, we're able to move things and do things in such ways that people then attribute fantastical things to whom they call gods. You know, Thor, Odin, Anansi, those people. All right. But science is beginning to collaborate everything except for the mental law, and that was at the time of writing this book. In today's world, science is also recognized that your thought exists. Your thought actually has and here's the thing. This is a part of the divine paradox. Scientists are beginning to recognize that your thoughts have matter, they're material, that they exist on the matter plane, but yet we know thoughts also don't exist on the matter plane, that thoughts are elevated, that they can be elevated to other planes of existence. It's the divine paradox. They exist, but they don't exist. It is, but it is not. But modern science is catching up. Okay? But we're going to go ahead and skip down into the main part of this lesson that I want you guys to understand. All right? And that is this. This part is a little long, but I'm going to read it anyway. But do not yield to the... this is the first part that I read earlier. Do not yield to the temptation which the Kabbalion stated, overcoming the half-wise and which causes them to be hypnotized by the apparent unreality of things. The consequence being that they wander about like dream people, dwelling in a world of dreams, ignoring the practical work and life of man. The end being that they are broken against the rocks and torn asunder by elements by reason of their folly. Rather, follow the example of the wise, which the same authority states, use law against law, higher against the lower, and by the art of alchemy transmute that which is undesirable to that which is worthy. Skip down. Escaping the pains of the lower planes by vibrating on the higher. Remember always, student, that that transmutation, not presumptuous denial, transmutation, not presumptuous denial, is the weapon of the masters. We do not live in a world of dreams, but in a universe which, while relative, is real so far as our lives and actions are concerned. Living on, doing the best that we can under the circumstances, rising each day. The true meaning of life is not to men on this plane, if indeed to any. Now, I skipped some lines in all of that. All of that is not read together. I skipped lines, right? But here's the thing. Let me put this in a framework that helps you to understand this entire thing about the divine paradox. One of the most famous sayings is faith without works is dead. But I challenge you in this way. Faith without works is dead. So faith with works, then faith is alive. Faith is the belief in something that does not exist, that you cannot prove, something that is not apparent. Works is more of the knowing, doing work, doing activities that you know exist that can produce a result. If I fed homeless without faith, my works are still alive and will produce the results. If I go to work, my work will produce a paycheck. I do not need faith to go to work. Work is therefore alive. Had a slight interruption there. So works are what's alive. Now I know that is going to hurt some of your sensibilities, but it's those who are going out screaming with dreams, screaming that God's going to bring me a house, God's going to give me a car, the universe is going to provide this, or I'm going to attract this person in my life, or I'm going to attract business in my life, I'm going to attract customers in my life, I'm going to attract good health. Those who are screaming out these things that are pretty much dream level, these things that are faith or believing levels, instead of knowing and working. See, here's what it is. The divine paradox is understanding that have your goal in mind, but know the work it requires to achieve that goal and put that work into action. You incorporate the law of vibration with your mentalism, and then you will vibrate higher and move along the polarity scale. Once you learn how to manage that, you polarize on one side of the scale to prevent the law of rhythm from swinging you back. That is the hard part. Because, like I said, transmutation, not presumptuous denial, is the weapon of the master. Denial is to just have hope and have faith. Denial is having faith in that nothing negative is going to happen, that the bad portions are not going to happen in your life. Denial is just being overly optimistic and not doing the work. But transmutation is transforming your thought that comes from a different plane into reality of this universe on the matter plane. You can have the thought of the car, but then do the work to materialize the car. You have the thought of the idea of the invention of the business or the wife or the husband, but then the work materializes the thought. This is what we are talking about, moving out of the dream. And I know it's very comfortable to live in the dream, but your dream, that is what faith without works really means. That's what it really means. But the substantial reality of it is that faith in itself is a dead thing because faith lacks knowing. So you got to get this into your mind, the divine paradox. Know yourself, free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable.